Good morning from the farmer's garden. I'm one of the farmers and we're in the house right now. We are at the dining table cutting up 150 pounds of potatoes, taking them from whole potato to seed potato. So we have to individually cut them and kind of sort out and see where the eyes are and separate them. And we are going to go plant them at the farm this afternoon. We don't have the deer fence finished yet, but because potatoes are planted so deep, they take a while to come up. So even though we're going to put them in the ground before the fence is done, the fence should be done before very many of them sprout, or at least sprout enough that the deer would start to find them. So let me show you how this process looks. So I've got my potato, and we're just going to look around and kind of see where the eyes are. The eyes are obviously, if you have potatoes at home that don't get used in time, they'll sprout like this, but also even the little tiny ones like this. There's one right there. We'll use even the small ones because we're cutting these up. We're cutting them up trying to get them to go as far as we can. So we could plant 150 pounds and cut each of these in half and drop them in the ground, and they would grow. But we want to get the most out of the seed potatoes that we have. So we're cutting ours fairly small, and I'm not sure if I can do this with one hand without cutting myself, but we'll see. Got all the math papers going on the table. You know what? Hold on. Brandon, show us.
Okay.
Because I'm going to cut myself. We sharpened our knives just for this, and so I'm not interested in that. All right, so we're cutting it first in half, and then we begin to study around. Some of them will get smaller. So this one has one big eye right there, but I don't see any other eyes on it. This one has a little eye there, little eye there. So these got cut smaller because we had an eye here, eyes here, eyes here. We're just trying to get them down into small enough chunks that we're not wasting any of the eyes. So that one potato turned into 8 pieces, and that will give us essentially 8 potato plants if they all sprout. And again, because we're cutting them so small, if they don't all sprout, we'll still have plenty to work with. So we just have, just 6 more crates, 5 more crates of potatoes to cut up, and then we'll be done. All right, we got all the seed potatoes cut up. We are out at the farm now. Brandon has a little fertilizer spreader behind the gator, and he is putting out the fertilizer that we need on the potatoes. One question that we get sometimes is, what kind of discounts do you get when you buy wholesale for your products? We don't. So agriculture products, the farmers and ranchers have to buy their products at retail value. So what you pay for fertilizer, what you pay for potting soil or flower pots, all of those things, we pay the same price. The only difference is if we can buy it in bulk. And a lot of times bulk is at a size that we cannot afford yet. So for example, bulk discounts for fertilizer start at 1 ton at a time. And we don't have enough land that we need to use a ton at a time. And fertilizer doesn't store very well. So we're kind of stuck buying retail value. So what you're paying for fertilizer this year is what we're paying for fertilizer this year. So while we're trying to increase how much fertilizer we put out and really help our plants that way, we're also fighting against the cost of doing that. For example, the fertilizer that we bought for this, if we were to buy a ton of it, it would be, I think the number was like $1,700 for a ton, versus if we can buy a ton at a time, it's like $800 or $900. So that's one thing that we're up against with the particular size that we're at now. We need a lot of things, but we're not big enough to need the bulk order. And like every other agriculture industry, we're buying things at retail price. We're paying the same price that you're paying unless we can purchase in bulk. So fertilizer is out. Next will be some disking and some cleaning up a few things left from last year. There's some eggplant vines that got pulled and just stacked, and so we'll get those moved out of the way. and then we will start planting potatoes. All right, Brandon has the disc and he is beginning to cultivate the soil, break it up. No disc, no till agriculture methods are not something that we can work with on our farm, and really not many places in East Texas can work with it without a great deal of expense. The ground gets very hard. We don't have freezing temperatures that freeze the ground. What happens in areas like the Midwest where they get super cold weather, that ground freezes and the water that's in there, the water expands and cracks the ground and breaks up those clods. We don't get a lot of that. We also have warm enough temperatures that the soil microbes are working pretty much every day of the year. There's very few days that they are dormant, and so that breaks up any of our organic material very quickly, eats that down, and then we're just left with sand or clay again. So that is one reason you will see us breaking our ground a lot, tilling a lot, that sort of thing. And you may wonder, why is Brandon on the tractor and why is Bethany the one going around with a bucket picking up rocks? That seems backwards. Well, it does seem backwards, especially because we call that my tractor. I am really good at raking hay or mowing fields or anything like that. I am not confident in small spaces, and I am not confident in anything that is a lot of forwards and backwards and gear shifting and that sort of thing. So it's just easier for me to let Brandon do that, and I do the heavy lifting on the ground for most of our tractor activities. This is going to get all tilled up. I think he's planning to do basically the whole garden that we used in here last year, so I think that was 1 or 2/10 of an acre, and that's what he's breaking up for today and getting ready for potatoes. One question we got at our recent Gardening 101 class was how soon before we're ready to plant do we work the ground? And in most cases, we do not work it a whole lot until time for us to plant it. Now, if we've cleared new ground, we'll work that more. But since this has been cleared, we're not going to work it a whole lot until we're ready. And this is part of the reason why. Not the whole reason, but part of the reason. So this pass right here is, he just went past this. Like, he was finishing this row as I walked over. So you can see all the moisture in it. And then even just 2 or 3 minutes in the sun, it begins to dry out. So we try to work it right as we need it, and we get those potatoes in the ground and we get it closed back up so that we make use of as much water as possible.
Okay, so Dad's getting on the tractor ready to plant some potatoes, and Mom's ready to plant some too. Okay.
Alrighty, that is done. I think Gracie got us some pretty good video of the actual planting process. I haven't actually watched it yet, but she looked like she was doing a great job, taking her job seriously. So we did use the planter that Brandon made last year. It always takes a little bit of adjustment right at first to get the depth right and the speed right and get the people trained again. So it takes a little bit. The first row or two is usually a bit goofy. But we ended up with 14 rows of potatoes. I cannot remember exactly how long these rows are, and I do not have time to measure them this evening because we have somewhere else we need to be, but they're long rows and there's 14 of them. Last year we had about 6 rows and we harvested 600 and something pounds of potatoes. So If we harvest 100 pounds per row this year, we're gonna have a lot of red potatoes, so y'all be prepared. It is February 28th. Most of the old timers around here will say plant your potatoes on Valentine's Day. Last year, at the advice of an older, much more experienced farmer, we decided to hold off until later in February, and it really worked well for us. So we've done that again this year. These are in the ground. They're 5 to 6 inches deep. Some of them not quite as deep. And it'll take them a little bit of time before they come up. We're hoping for some rain Wednesday and Thursday. That'll help them. But also potatoes come ready to grow with their own little energy source. They live off the starch in that potato for a little bit while they grow. So anyways, yeah, 14 rows of potatoes are now in the ground. And I think that's where we're going to call it a day. I hope y'all enjoyed your visit to the farm. I hope it was less work for you than it was for us. Y'all be sure and tell your friends about us so we can grow our YouTube channel and come back when you can stay longer.